Good evening, everyone. My name is Stephen Wright, and I'm privileged to serve as the interim dean here in the Faculty of Arts and Science at the University of Toronto. It's my great pleasure to welcome you to the third installment of the Share Your Sparks speaker series, presented by the Center for Entrepreneurship in the Faculty of Arts and Science. This special talk takes place during Entrepreneurship Week, a time when the university and the faculty demonstrate their strong commitment to nurturing bold ideas and turning them into innovative impact. If you enjoy tonight's event, and I'm sure you will, I hope you will join us for more programming on campus this week. Before I discuss what's in store for this evening, I'd like to deliver our land acknowledgement. We wish to acknowledge this land on which the University of Toronto operates. For thousands of years, it has been the traditional land of the Huron-Wendat, the Seneca, and the Mississaugas of the Credit. Today, this meeting place is still the home of many Indigenous people from across Turtle Island, and we are grateful to have the opportunity to work on this land. As we look towards the future and the new ventures our students are building, we do so with a commitment to fostering a community built on respect and reconciliation. I'm absolutely thrilled to be here with all of you as we hear from two members of our community who are deeply involved in entrepreneurship. One whose interest is in the rocket industry, which I've got to say feels like an apt metaphor for entrepreneurship. And the other, a former public servant who is now leading ventures in AI and health. It's my pleasure to introduce our speakers for this evening's conversation. Jeanue Chung and the Honourable Tony Clement. Jeanue is a fourth-year astronomy and astrophysics undergraduate student and founder of the LUNR Aerospace Corporation. He's dedicated to establishing the infrastructure needed to strengthen Canada's role in the global space economy. Jeanue is also a mentee with our Center for Entrepreneurship's Venture Mentoring Service, as well as a member of the Next 36 2025 cohort and a Forbes 30 Under 30 shortlistee. So he's got a lot going on, to say the least. He's truly a model representative of our arts and science community. And joining him is the Honourable Tony Clement, a U of T Arts and Science and Law alum, whose career has shaped the Canadian political, legal, and business landscape. He's a former politician, having served in both federal and Ontario governments, where he held several cabinet positions, including as Minister of Industry. With all of his political knowledge, he brings a wealth of experience in national strategy and economic transformation. And he's an entrepreneur in his own right, leading ventures in AI and health and providing strategic advice on the global stage. We're truly honored to have time with these two remarkable individuals tonight. And as I think we'll hear more, it turns out they've known each other for quite some time. When we reach the Q&A segment this evening, we encourage active participation. So please submit your questions through the QR code, which hopefully will arrive on the screen at some point. Magic. I should note that I unfortunately need to leave early this evening to attend another event taking place on the other side of campus. I need some additional magic to replicate myself. Have Harry Potter magic. But I know that this discussion will be recorded and released on our Arts and Science Lectures on Demand playlist. So I very much look forward to hearing the full discussion. Thank you once again for joining us to learn and be inspired. And please join me in giving a very warm welcome to Jeanue and the Honourable Tony Clement.
Okay, thanks for being here and happy Entrepreneur Week. And we're going to have a little bit of a conversation. We're going to try to keep it, conversational. And so I do have a couple of cheat notes here, but I think Jeanue and I know each other for over 3 years now.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll start with that story, then you can start with your origin story. But the story of how I got to know Jeanue is he contacted me on LinkedIn and said, Mr. Clement, I know of you and some of the things you've done in politics and some of the things you're doing in the entrepreneurial world, and I've got this venture to build a better rocket, which you're going to hear about, and we'd love you to be part of the advisory board. And I thought, well, this kid is like, he's in astrophysics at U of T. U of T is my alma mater. Sure, I'll take a little gamble and be associated with this guy. And so he wanted me on as an advisor. And then I didn't think much of it. I'll be honest with you. I did not think much of it. And then he said to me a couple months down the road, would you like to meet some other members of the team? So I'm thinking in my head, it's a couple of other over-caffeinated undergrads from the astrophysics department who have not a lot of sleep. So I'm thinking this Zoom call is going to be 3 or 4 people. Anyway, I get on this Zoom call. There must have been 20 people on the Zoom call, Caltech, MIT, you name it. And I'm thinking to myself, my goodness, this guy has something going here. Clearly, it's greater and bigger and more exciting, and he got me excited by it. And so our relationship has only grown from there. Probably this story has only grown from the way it started out. But Jeanue, that's my kind of story about how you and I got to know one another. But I think let's just get started at the basics. Maybe tell the audience a little bit about your time at U of T, what you're doing, your program of study, what year you're in. How did you get to U of T? Why U of T, not somewhere else? Why don't we start with that?
Yeah, like speaking of LinkedIn, the dean's intro, I'm going to need a copy of that because I want to put it on LinkedIn as a bio. But yeah, so I'm currently a 4th-year student here at the University of Toronto. I'm studying astrophysics, as the dean and Tony mentioned. And I started LUNR actually in 1st year. I was in my dorm at Morrison Hall, I think that's what it's called. And I was there, and I came back from a physics class. And the professor was talking about rockets, and we were learning about the physics of rockets and why it's not crashing the other way, et cetera. And I kind of had a feeling that there should have been a need for rockets. I like rockets. My parents took me to NASA when I was younger, and I thought that was pretty cool. And so I emailed the professor, and the professor basically emailed him saying, hey, why doesn't Canada launch rockets? Why don't we do this? I did some digging. There's nothing on the internet that says Canada launches rockets, so we have a good space program. And he basically said that there were missiles and the ICBMs, and that was the reason why there were no rockets actually being made or launched in Canada. And so that's really where the idea came from. I realized that there was an opportunity to start a company in this space. Canada does not launch rockets currently. We are the only G7 country that does not launch rockets, and I think that's a domestic issue, but also it's really a national security concern, and I think it's in the interest of all of Canada to actually have opportunities like this. And so combine that with kind of the opportunity for talent loss. I think a kind of a problem that you see nowadays is that a lot of Canadians in university, whether that be my colleagues or my friends in general, what they want to do is that they go to these top institutions in the country and in the world, actually. And what they do is that they leave the country, right? If you ask one of my friends, hey, what do you want to do after you graduate with the software engineering degree? What they say is that they want to go down to the States. They want to go to Europe. They want to go to Asia. And I think that's a problem. I think we should be able to retain talent here in Canada. I think we've got one of the greatest education systems in the world, and that's been proven many times over. And I think it's very important that we are able to retain and attract and create talent that we create here at great institutions like U of T. And so that was a big blurb, but that's really what kind of caused this.
Yeah, I'm really interested in how you kind of develop this, because people all the time have notions or idea, well, we should launch our own rockets. We're a G7 country. Yeah. But going from that to establishing LUNR, your company. So take us a little bit through your thought pattern on that. What prompted you to think, okay, well, I'm going to do this. I'm going to create a vehicle for doing, not just a rocket vehicle. I'm talking about a corporate vehicle, right? Yeah. So take us a little bit through that as well.
Yeah, so I think the very first thing that comes to mind is when I started, I was 19 years old, and I think when you approach the general public with the idea that you're starting a rocket company, you get like these crazy looks. Half of the people think you're going crazy, and the other half think it's just a joke, which I think it's totally valid, but at the same time, that kind of motivated me to actually be a little bit more ambitious and be a little bit more disciplined in focusing on the execution of the company. And so what we did was, obviously, I think the very first advisor, the very first mentor that I had was Tony, and I think through that, I was able to solidify the business plan a little bit further. I think it's very important that you kind of match your ambition, the ambition that you have with execution. And I think that comes specifically from discipline. And so through that, you were able to, or at least I was able to bring the company together, find great team members who are actually here in the audience and have loyal people that stick by you and grow the company as the company grows along, whether that be through fundraising rounds or actually the engine testing as well. And so I've been very fortunate to be surrounded by great people. And I think any students that are looking to start a company, you should really just start. I think there's a lot of doubt and a lot of self-doubt or even just nerves that get in the way, right? A lot of people, or some people that I know, say they have a great idea, but it's, to be totally frank, the rest of the world doesn't care that you've got a great idea or that you're scared to start. I think it's very important that you push through that and really get yourself uncomfortable and start the company and actually get going. And I don't think there's a better opportunity to start a company than now in Canada. So,
did you kind of workshop? I'm interested in the thought process of you see a problem that needs to be solved.
Mhm.
How did you collaborate and workshop the technology aspect of it? I'm interested in that as well.
Yeah, so the technology is very complex. A lot of actually the biggest joke that I hear is whether I talk to investors or just people in general, it's like, it's not rocket science. They say that as a joke. It's like, it's not rocket science, but it's, I guess they meet and I'm just sitting there awkwardly going like, yeah. But it's very complicated to start off with. I think launching rockets is very dangerous. It's complicated. There's a lot of moving parts and a lot of things need to go very right for there to be success. And so I think the very first thing is having a great team that supports the company's movement, the company's direction, and also helping execute the vision that you start. And so just creating a good founding team, having a good understanding of the fundamentals. I think my astrophysics degree actually did help a lot. A lot of what I do now is, I think my physics degree helps in the foundational understanding of a lot of the technical aspects of the company, whether that be actually designing the rocket engine or finding out different heat capacities or something of that sort. And so I think having a good foundation is important, having a good team is important, and also being able to execute very quickly is important, but not being too naive about it.
So you talked a little bit about, obviously, astrophysics.
Yep.
And the department is kind of shaping how you view the problem solving. I also learned that you are a varsity athlete. Is that fair to say?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So tell us a little bit about that. Do you think that had any influence or impact on how you approach things, how you look at leadership, how you look at execution to success? Maybe I'm pushing the envelope a little bit, but I'd love to know whether that was sort of, when you reflect back, was that helpful?
Yeah, and so my running journey actually started in elementary school. And I was starting out in cross country in elementary school, and I was the short kid who ran all right. I played a little bit of hockey, so therefore my fitness was a little bit above average, I would say. I don't know if that's an ego thing. But I had a good time, and basically I got into high school, and I started taking running a lot more seriously. And I started developing discipline. I think COVID was really the life-turning moment for me. During COVID, the lockdowns and everything, I kind of had a mental switch where it was a lot of people my age are in online school. Let me make the most out of it. And so what I did was I started to develop a routine, and I really wanted to get good at running. That was my set goal. And as a result, I got really disciplined over the process over the next couple of years. And so what I would do every morning is I would wake up at 4:55 in the morning, get on my phone for 5 minutes. That's the reason why I didn't wake up at 5. I just wanted to go on my phone and scroll social media. And so that's what I would do. So I'd get up at 4:55, scroll on my phone for 5 minutes and get out the door and go for a run. And I think what that happened was over a couple of years, I think I did this for about 4 years actually. So maybe 10th grade all the way to maybe first and second year. What that really kind of brought to my mind was that A, you need to work very hard to actually achieve something that you need, which led me to being an athlete here at the University of Toronto, but also making sure that you're disciplined. I think discipline is a very big thing, whether you're starting a company or you're in school. For example, I think ambition is important. Ambition is good. Having strong ambition is good. Looking to start great things is good. But if you don't have the discipline to carry it out and execute, the ambition only goes so far, right? And so for me, I think starting out with discipline was very important. I thought it was a very good foundation for me to develop not only my career, but on a personal side. And that carries forward with pretty much everything that I do today. I become hyper-competitive almost to some extent. I really want to win. And I don't know if that's an egotistical thing again, but at the same time, I really want to win. And I think it plays a big role in how we approach different problems, different companies, different ideas in mind. And another thing when it comes to success or failure that I'm sure you know, I think pressure, there's a lot of negative connotation around the word pressure. I think when people think of pressure, they're like, oh wow, I'm going to collapse under this thing. But I think it's very important that you switch your mindset in a way where you appreciate the pressure that you have on you. And so, for example, you wake up every single morning, and if you're running a company, if you've got a meeting that you're in, or if you're speaking to the nation, right? I think there's a lot of pressure on you. And,
Sure.
And I think it's very important to understand that this pressure is good. There is no bad in pressure. The stress that you feel leading up to the event, the stress that you feel during the event, it's all good for you. And so that kind of mentality switch really kind of switched how I view a lot of things. So anytime I feel a pressure, whether I'm walking into an investor meeting, starting a new company, or working on the current company that I have, or talking with Tony, there's a lot of pressure. And I think you just need to have a mentality switch where you appreciate it and you love the pressure. And you also need to love the stress, I think. And a lot of people, I don't think they appreciate the situation that they're in as much. I think it's very important that not only are you grateful for the pressure, you're grateful for the situation that you're in. And so
I think that's very insightful. Yeah. And when I look back at my university days, I was always doing other things like you. They weren't really entrepreneurial at that moment in my life. They were more getting involved in campus politics. I was on governing council and did all sorts of other things inside and outside the university. But for me, it was all about time management, which I think you were alluding to as well. Like when you've got a number of different obligations to your studies, to your athleticism, to your project, and your company, you have to learn very quickly to time manage that. Yep. And that's one of the skills you can learn in university. It's not a course, but it's just how to run your life. And time management has been a real, I think, a key factor in when I look back at my life in politics or in business. Managing is only 24 hours in a day, and how do you manage that properly? So I remember I was doing when I was in undergrad at Arts and Science. We were in the exam season, and I was studying for this exam, and I discovered the night before the exam that there was a book I was supposed to have read that I did not. I was supposed to read that, and it's going to be on the exam, and this is like the night before at 8 o'clock in the evening. So I said, okay. I read the first sentence and the last sentence of every paragraph in the book as quickly as I could. And I got kind of the gist of it by about 4 in the morning. And I was able to eke out success on that exam. But it was like, the pressure was on, right? Yeah, like I had no idea this book was going to be on the exam. But these are all experiences that are good in life too, right? I mean, this is when you're having to present something with your company or seek investors. This is all good life experience, right?
It is, yeah. Do you drink coffee by any chance?
That's the other thing. I never drank coffee in university. I was the one who didn't drink coffee. So I had to stay awake regardless of that. Let's. I want to circle back a little bit. We want to again make sure the audience has a good understanding of, you have an idea, and then you get to execution. you know, and this is, I think, one of the things of CFE is that they want people to know how to do that properly. It's really important. So one of the things is you were a student at U of T. You're aware of the Center for Entrepreneurship. Tell us a little bit, in your own words, the nexus of that. You know, what was helpful or not helpful, or you know, did that value add in some way? Tell us in your own words about that.
I think the center's most appealing trait, actually, for me, was the fact that it was open 24/7. This place, I come here quite often, I would say, over the past 2 years or so. I saw it go up, which was nice. It went up actually very quickly compared to other buildings in the city, which is quite impressive. But yeah, the center is open 24/7, which I always think is a good thing when you're looking to do late night work, when you're frequently kind of stuck pretty much by your laptop with your earbuds in. That's a problem if you don't have a place to work. And so that's always been a good thing. And there's also being kind of surrounded by like-minded people. I think everybody at the center is very focused. I see a couple of them in the audience, which is nice, but everybody at the center is very focused on creating their own projects and really developing their passion. And I think that's very important. And I think the center does a very good job at it. It's led by a great executive director who's smiling over there, but it's been a great time. And I know that they've been a very, very strong part and the foundation of U of T's entrepreneurship community.
I mean, and it's obviously you've got this co-working space. Was that helpful at all?
It was, yeah. The 24/7 thing is very nice. Come, you plop open your laptop, you sit down, and you just do work without comment. And I think that's been a very good help. And also the support network that exists is always great. I know that there's a lot of services that are offered within the center, which I think is very nice and helpful to a lot of entrepreneurs that are just starting out. And so that's been great.
So it sounds, I'm conscious of the fact that our conversation sounds like it's a very linear process. And I'm sure the audience would know, and I'm sure you know, that life isn't like that, and entrepreneurship isn't like that. You might be taking 2 steps forward and then a step back, or sometimes a step forward and 2 steps back. So tell us a little bit about, you know, if you encountered any setbacks and how you dealt with that. How did you change your kind of attitude towards something? Give us a little bit of an insight on that.
Yeah, and so I would say the biggest setback has been the risk associated with the company itself. When you're starting out a rocket company, there is no joke. I know that it sounds very nice, but seriously, on the regulatory side, it is no joke. And I think it's very important that you have ambition, but there's a very big problem when it comes to the regulations surrounding it. And you see that actually very clearly with NASA. I know that you're fond of NASA. You like the stars, and I always see you sending me posts about it. But anyways, the point is that Artemis, the mission that's going to the moon, the reason why they actually postponed it was because of the fact that I thought they went a little bit too ahead. They almost challenged the traditional narrative of taking big complex ideas like going to the moon step by step, but rather they took a massive approach. They decided to go, that they're going to land on the moon, which I thought was pretty incredible, very ambitious, but it's very smart, and I totally agree with their decision as to why they are pulling back on this decision. I think it's very important that when you're doing something so ambitious, you need to weigh the risks very properly. You need to make sure that you're not stepping ahead, especially on the regulatory realm, and you're being very compliant with it. And when you're in an industry that is so heavily regulated, you're also working for the people. When you create infrastructure like this, it's very important that you're compliant, that you're following all laws, and that you also represent humanity to some extent. And I think that's been a very big part of the company.
Yeah, I think that's a great example, Artemis 3. I'm glad you raised that, because I too agree that there was the right decision when I heard all the facts.
Yeah.
You know, at first I was disappointed. One of the few people in this room who remembers humans landing on the moon. I remember staying up almost all night, you know, as an 8-year-old and watching the moon landing, right? But what Artemis is doing and what you're doing, in a sense, is you're not doing things the previous way. You're actually innovating, right? And their approach to moon landings is not take Apollo mission and then replicate it. It's going to be completely different with completely different technology, which has to be tested and retested and retested. And that's probably something you recognize in terms of your own plans for LUNR.
Yes, yeah, it's a lot of iterations, a lot of testing, a lot of communication between the team members to make sure that the thing that we're developing actually will not blow up in our faces. Obviously, we take safety standards very seriously. We got an engineer on the team who just strictly focuses on the safety side of the technology, which I think is always great. But yeah, we've been taking that very seriously.
So let's talk about, obviously I'm a bit of a public policy nerd, being a former politician, and I do want to unpack a little bit more about what LUNR means for Canada. Again, tell us in your own words why this is important for Canadian public policy and Canadian innovation and industry to have LUNR as a successful company.
Yeah, and so LUNR is a subset, I would say, of the larger innovation ecosystem that's currently being developed in Canada. I think the most important thing right now is that I think it's a very pivotal moment in Canadian history, actually, to be working on infrastructure projects like this. I think there has never been a time, and I know that Tony will agree to this, there's never been a time that's more important, there's never been a time to actually believe in the country more than today, and there's never been a better opportunity to start big projects like this in Canada. I think the pivot that you see on the south of the border is very important. If anything, it actually did us some good. And to some extent, politics aside, it gets to the point where you cannot be blaming President Donald Trump for what they do. I think it's time that there is some responsibility and some proper outlook on the forecasts of Canada. And I think it's very important that we take advantage of this moment as individuals, as citizens, to really capitalize on it. And I think there's great opportunity. There's more investment pouring into the country than ever before, and I think that's a very telltale sign that there is some good. And I don't know if you have any comments on the public policy side. I'm sure you've got a lot, but yeah. It's been great watching everything happen, and I think there's definitely great potential for everybody in this room to possibly take advantage of, and I think you should.
Well, I think what you're doing is you're thinking big, and we do need that in this country. There's always a potential reason why we shouldn't do something, but I think it's very clear in terms of geopolitics now that no one's going to look after Canada if Canadians don't look after Canada, right? So I think I agree with your analysis of the situation, and I used to say when I was in government, we have great public servants in this country. I want to make that very clear. Great public servants. Sometimes, however, they would come to me with saying, Minister, I don't think we can really do that. I don't think. Now, I'm not talking ethically, or it's just a matter of delivering. And I would say, so you're telling me that we're a G7 country and we can't get this done with all of the bright Canadians and bright public service and the resources that we have available? You're saying it's impossible. And they would say, no, we're not saying that. Like they were just afraid of, in a sense, you're leaping into the unknown. I think that's the biggest fear. But what Jeanue is saying is, look, this is the world we're in now, and we've got to step up. And when we have great ideas, let's try to get those to the execution phase, as we're talking about. I'd like to talk about sort of the talent aspect of it. I think what LUNR, upon success means that you won't be part of the brain drain. You'll be part of attracting talent to this country and making sure that the talent that we have is put to good use. Is that part of your vision as well?
Yeah, and I think speaking of success, I think success for the company, besides hitting the milestones, executing, a big part of success for the company is really seeing Canadian talent not only join the company, but also develop. And I think that's been a very big part. And seeing Canadian talent, we have the talent, we have the ambition, but I think it's time that we have the infrastructure to match the ambition and the talent that we have. I know that every single person in this room has probably been through the Canadian education system. You know how successful it is. And we've got the talent, we've got the resources, and we are developing the infrastructure for it. And I think there is a great opportunity here, whether that be renewable energies to leverage or just big projects like LUNR Aerospace. And I think it's definitely a good opportunity.
Let's talk a little bit about collaboration and partnership, because a project such as yours is not just somebody in front of a computer screen designing something. Like, you've got to get the academic world in which you are still a member, obviously. You've got government, you've got industry, you've got investors or potential investors. All of these are stakeholders. So give us a sense of who you see as your key partners and how you align them to ensure success.
Yeah, so a lot of our key partners, besides the manufacturing side, I think a lot of our key partners is actually the people that we work with directly. I know that sounds like an obvious answer, but when you're starting a company, there is nothing more important than maintaining good relationships and also creating good relationships that are not transactional. I think what you see nowadays between students is that everybody wants to get a job. I understand the job market is bad, but at the same time, I think a lot of the relationships that are being formed today are very transactional. It's like, I want something out of you. And I think that's, I don't know if lame is the right way to put it, but I don't think it's good. And I think there's an opportunity where for us, for me, for everybody, yourself included, I think we make relationships that we want to continue having, and we make relationships that are very meaningful. And so a big part of the company when it comes to partnerships, and whether we're talking with suppliers or manufacturers or politicians or investors in general, is maintaining a good relationship and creating good relationships. And I think it's definitely a trait that is missed out upon by a lot of the people that are starting companies. They're too focused on creating the product, which is totally fair, but don't neglect the people side.
Well, I'm glad you said that, because being in the startup world, as I am now, I think one of the challenges sometimes is the founders, the inventors have great ideas, but they're sometimes not great people, if I can put it that way. And if I can tell you one thing about Jeanue, he is a great networker. He's great with people. He's always meeting new people. I remember I was at a U of T Faculty of Law event where I was being a mentor, and I was describing how in an unnamed way, that you and I had contact, and that you had brought me into your world, and that one of these Faculty of Law students said, "Are you talking about Jeanue?" I'm like, how did you know that person? But that's pretty rare, I got to say. And I think it's a really good thing to underline. You can have a great idea, and you can technically on your laptop grow that idea, but one of the skills that is going to be really helpful to you is the people skills.
Yeah, I don't know if you can see the blush on my cheeks from that comment, but no, it's definitely good. And I think, I don't know if you've remembered my big ears. I don't know, I had really big ears growing up, and I thought that was a noticeable trait. But at the same time, I'm with you on that. I think it's very important that you leave a lasting impression that's not only good, but isn't transactional to some extent. I think a lot of people value that. If anything, it's deprived in society nowadays. It's like you meet a person that's so outgoing, and you're like, I feel like I've known you forever. And I think that's the type of person that you kind of don't want to force it, or else it just comes off as fake.
And if I may say, as the old guy in the room, I think we've gotten as a society so used to screen time that the face-to-face, it's almost a lost art of persuasion. And you can do all the persuading you want on the Zoom or Teams call, but at some point you're going to be face-to-face.
Yeah.
And if I personally could leave something with you, I don't underestimate that skill. And I think one of the great things about this center is, you are commingling with people in an actual space, and you're getting to know other people, what they're up to, and that might impact on you, or it might be just interesting what they're doing, and that expands your network. And when I do my mentorship for U of T. They've got this 10,000 coffees program or whatever it is. And it's like, it's an online chit chat with somebody where I'm trying to mentor them. I'm just saying, go out there, meet new people, join a club, join an association, do something where you're meeting people outside of maybe even your comfort zone, but it's gonna suit you well later on in life. I think that is an important point, and you are, if I may say so, a master of it. We've got about less than 10 minutes left, so we should probably talk about safety and regulation. You have talked about a little bit environmental concerns. How does that build into what you're planning for LUNR?
Yeah, I think the environmental concerns actually is a big part and a big consideration of what we are developing. Obviously, when you start a reaction that is that combustible, you have outputs that are harmful to the environment. And we want to make sure that we are very mindful of that. And we take that very seriously. And we make sure that every step, every precaution that we take, environmental assessments, environmental safety, environmental considerations are all taken into consideration as the development happens. And so it's something we take very seriously, and I think all companies should be taking it very seriously, especially in this space. There's a lot of debate around it, but I think we are doing a pretty good job at it.
And this has got to be a standard question whenever the Center for Entrepreneurship is doing anything, but how does AI impact what you're doing?
Yeah, AI is an interesting topic. Funny enough, a week ago I discovered Claude. I used ChatGPT for a decent amount, and then my roommate, my partner, everybody's like, use Claude. And so I used Claude. It's nuts. Like, seriously, I've never seen something like that, and it's kind of creeping me out to some extent. I think we should be aware of it. But at the same time, I do think the methods that they use to train AI, I'm not an AI expert by any means, but I think it's very important that there's humans actually involved in the process of training these models. It will get to the point where we don't want LLMs, we don't want chatbots, we don't want AI to just automate on its own. I think that's very dangerous to some extent. And I think there needs to be practices and measures in place, whether it be safety or actual considerations in the development that involve human involvement in all the different processes that are carrying through.
Now, I'm just switching gears because we're running out of time a little bit, but I was made aware that there's something called Venture Mentoring Service.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about that. What's that all about?
Yeah, so it's a program that's run by the Center for Entrepreneurship, and basically what it does is it brings together esteemed or well-known entrepreneurs and founders, or people that have worked with startup founders in the past, and it creates a mentorship program. So there's foundational lessons that are being taught, and the founders, whatever stage you're in, it's usually early stage founders, you can pretty much interact with these mentors as many times as you want. It's usually once a month, I would say. But anyways, you get a good understanding of how to start a company, the foundations for it. And it's also nice when you're starting out, kind of referring back to the circle of fear that some people have when they're starting a company. It's always good to bounce ideas off of somebody that has been in this space for quite some time. And I know that it's helping definitely a lot of founders in this room today.
Okay, good stuff. So, I've given a little bit of advice just off the cuff today. What advice would you give to early stage founders based on your experiences?
I would say start. I think it's very important that you start. Too many people, again, going back to the point of being caught up in their own self-doubt or worry or fear, I think it's very important that you start and focus on speed. I know that I'm young, and I would consider you young, but at the same time, I think it's an advantage.
I haven't been called young for a few decades. I just want to make that clear.
I think an advantage that you have of being young is that you have the opportunity where you have almost nothing to lose, right? And I think speed is a very big part of that, as in if you have an idea, you've got to start and you've got to develop at speeds that you probably would not have imagined. And I think that, again, comes from discipline, ambition, and kind of execution and putting that all together into a project that you're working on. And so just starting and also speed. Get going as quick as you can and start developing as quick as you can.
And it's okay to make some mistakes along the way.
Yes, it totally is. Yeah, it teaches you things. I guess I understand why people are scared to fail, but at the same time, accept it with open arms to some extent. It's good for you. It is good for your development. It is good for the company. And it's also good in general. I don't think there's anything bad about it, unless you get thrown in jail. But I don't think there's anything bad about failure.
Yeah. No, I agree with you on that for sure. Okay, so next steps.
Yeah.
Tell us what your plans are, work, school, life. What's next?
Yeah, so I'm supposed to be graduating this year, which is nice. I think the past 4 years have gone by in a whiz. I don't know if Tony can relate to that at all, but definitely has gone by pretty quick. I think in terms of next steps, I continue working on the company, hopefully, or eventually look at other ventures or potentially start another company. But at the same time, I want to find a way to give back, and I know that you've been doing the exact same thing where you've been giving back to the community that you were so well supported by, and I think that's very important. So obviously, and going hiking. I've actually gotten into hiking recently. I like the nature. I feel like it calms me down to some extent, gets me out of the world, and so I'll do a little bit more of that and invest in some good hiking shoes and maybe a nice backpack.
That was not the answer I was expecting, but that's very interesting. In terms of LUNR, can you, I don't want to give away any secrets in terms of your corporate planning, but is there something you can share with next steps with LUNR?
Yeah, so the company is going, I mean, I don't know if you guys would be excited at all, but I'm pretty excited about the fact that over the next couple months, there's going to be incredible developments, not only for the company currently, but the future of the company as well. And I think everybody will be excited to know, or at least I hope everybody's excited to know, that there's going to be some fun stuff. And I really cannot discuss any further, but at the same time, just keep an eye out, and I think it's going to be a very good time. We're going to be making sure that we work very hard to execute and deliver on the milestones that we plan on delivering. And I think it'll be fun.
Well, good luck. I'm very proud of this guy, and I think he's the kind of entrepreneur and founder we need in this country. I'm very proud to be associated with him, and I'm just excited to come along for the ride a little bit and see what you're up to. So let's give him a round of applause before we move on. Okay. So we're a little bit early, but that's okay. We've got a couple of extra minutes for questions, so I think we're around 12 minutes in total, and you can use that QR code to log in a question, and then it's supposed to come up on my little iPad here, so hopefully that works. Do I have to press anything to see if there's a question or not? Nobody knows. Okay. Someone knows. Don't be shy. He's just checking the tech. That's probably a good idea.
It's kind of an awkward silence, isn't it?
How many people here have ideas that they're pursuing right now? Put your hand up if you got it. There's a few people here. This is great. Fantastic. Sure, let's go with that.
I think it's a little bit easier, isn't it? There might be a lot of hands. I'm not too sure, but
yeah, I don't know why we're doing it that way. I'm just the hired help. I don't know, Madame. Okay, go for it.
yes. Yes, and so I think the traditional narrative that you see with pressure is that everybody, or at least the traditional norm is that pressure is bad. I really think that should be changed, as in when the pressure is coming towards you, if you feel pressure of any extent, whether that you've got the whole country on your back, or you've got a company that you're running or a project that you're running on your back, I think it's very important that you appreciate it. And it's very easy to fall under the trap of, oh, I'm feeling pressured. I'm going to start spiraling into this mess of stress and anxiety and feeling actually the effects of what you're feeling. But I think it's important that you have a mentality shift And this doesn't come overnight, by the way. This is not like you wake up and all of a sudden you're some beast, but it's like you become accustomed to the pressure, and I think it's also important that you get yourself out there and get as uncomfortable as you can. A part of what I would say developed my, not only discipline, but my need and my love for pressure and stress is the fact that when you get up in the morning, and it's, I don't know, when I was in like 10th grade, it was like 5 in the morning and it would be very cold. And the last thing that I would want to do, still to this day, is probably go outside and go for a run. Like running, it's kind of annoying already. But at the same time, going outside in the morning when it's -20 out and it's 5 in the morning, there's nobody out. I think it builds and reinforces a certain kind of mentality where you can take anything on throughout your day that challenges you because of the fact that you did something that was hard. And kind of circling back to that point, I think another important thing that all people should do specifically is make your bed in the morning. I think, when you come back after a hard day, your bed's made, you're like, wow, I can sleep. But also in the morning, it's a little win. Whether it be you wake up at, I don't know, if you wake up at 1 p.m., it doesn't matter. You still make your bed, and it's a little task that you accomplish, and that leads into better habits as the day goes on. And so I think that's very important. But going back to pressure, obviously I can't enforce anything on you. I'm not your mom or dad, but at the same time, pressure, I think everybody should have the mentality that pressure is good. Pressure is good. The stress that you feel is good. It will only make you stronger at the end of the day, and also, to some extent, it makes them perform better. And so kind of having that mentality is always good.
Wow, we've got a lot of questions who have been,
goodness.
Have been submitted. Okay, we'll better get to these.
Make me look good, please.
The first question wants to know about sort of life hacks or practices or systems for time management.
Time management, oh
Yes.
wow. Yeah, time management's an interesting one. I would say figuring out your priorities. I know, again, that's an obvious answer, but at the same time, how I go about it is I don't go off a regimented schedule, as in I'm going to be working on my company from 9 a.m. to, I don't know, 6 p.m., and then I'm going to be working on school for the next 3 hours. As in, I kind of filter it out as in terms of importance. So what is important to start the day? What is important to end the day? And I think when you're balancing school and academia and entrepreneurship, that's very important. And so figuring out your priorities, setting the priorities straight, getting a good idea of what is important in your day, and filtering that out, I think, is very important.
Yeah, it was definitely a learned skill for me. And I just sort of kept myself busy all the time on campus. I had the academics, and obviously wanted to have a social life, but I was also, as I say, involved in campus politics and president of the UC Lit and all these other things going on. And I just felt it forced me to prioritize. And that's just so important because, and even we had this practice in the law school where you'd have these take-home exams that you had to complete in 24 hours. So, that there's a time limit, and you have to get it done. And if it's done at 3 in the morning, that's great. If it's done at 7 in the morning and it's due at 7:30, that you use the time management properly. And I think that those are all very important skills that you can learn at the university level. There's nothing stopping you. And it's really no different than life. It's, once you're out of this place, it's the same skill. It doesn't really change at all. Jeanue, where do you see yourself in 10 years?
Oh, man. That's like half my age, right? I would say in 10 years, I hope to see my company almost bringing in new talent, retaining it, and also creating new opportunities in Canada. I hope to be contributing to the ecosystem that is currently starting in the startup space. I hope to be contributing to the infrastructure developments that are happening. I also want to get out more. I want to enjoy time with my family, my friends, people that I work with. I think that's very important, but I think that's my 10-year outlook. Find some new hobbies, continue playing sports, get fit again.
There you go. Nice. He's always looking for new ventures and new vistas. I love that. Here's one about, this is actually quite an interesting question. I don't think we tackled it. What is LUNR's value proposition for launch services besides the domestic Canadian angle?
Yeah, and so the domestic Canadian angle is important. I think that is something that carries forward with the company and also the execution side. I think that's very important to the company, and one thing that we focus on is how efficient and also how quick we can manufacture. Our go-to-market strategy will be, at least aims to be a lot quicker in terms of what we plan to do. Manufacturing techniques that we use will aim to be quicker, and hopefully with that increases the launch cadence and also the reliability of the launch vehicle itself, or the rocket. And I think that is the main pillar of the company in terms of the manufacturing techniques that we use and also the technical development. In terms of other differentiators, I would say besides being in Canada, Canada offers a great geolocation to actually launch these satellites and to actually launch rockets. And I think that's an important trait of the company that we want to take advantage of.
Yeah, I think that's an important point. We do have some natural advantages in this country. For data centers is another good example, but geolocation for satellite launch is a very, very good example. You may have already answered it then, because one of the questioners wanted to know, why aren't you working for SpaceX or NASA? Why did you decide to stay in Canada and build your Spark here rather than moving to the US?
So there's two reasons. The first reason actually is that I'm not allowed to work at SpaceX full-time. SpaceX, because they are a defense company, because they pretty much make missiles to a glorified extent, you need to be an American citizen. And so I am a Canadian citizen, I'm a proud Canadian, which kind of transitions to my second point, where there's a real opportunity in Canada to be creating projects, to be creating companies like this. And I thought it was an advantage for me to take advantage of this opportunity now versus 10 years down the line. And I think for everybody in this room, there's still opportunity out there. There's many projects that are happening. You know, there's a bunch with critical infrastructure, critical minerals that are happening. And I think that is something that everybody should be taking advantage of, not only even in Ontario, but across the country.
Fantastic. A person asks, which ministry regulates rockets?
Oh, the Department of Transportation. So the Department of Transportation regulates rockets and the airspace around it. Department of National Defense as well. We are in frequent contact with.
We are. And by the way, when I was Minister of Industry, though, I was responsible politically for the Canadian Space Agency.
Yeah, which is
so
cool.
That was part of Industry Canada's role and responsibility, which was pretty cool. Do you think a net zero greenhouse gas emission rocket launch is possible?
I don't think so at this moment. I think over the next 10 years, possibly. It's a very difficult question considering how much thrust you need to actually get this thing off the ground. Currently, no. It's kind of the same problem that you see with nuclear fusion. A lot of money can go into it, but I think maybe in the next decade or so, there could be some advancements, but currently, no.
How did you, I'm going to put it this way, I'm putting the emphasis in the question, how did you select your advisory board originally?
Yeah, so Tony's a nice guy. Works out. But also in terms of advisory boards, when you're starting out, that's also a very important thing. You need to have the right people surrounding you. And one part of it was kind of checking off all the important aspects of the company. So whether that be policy or technical expertise, or even just relations with the government or relations with people or the network that people may have. And so that's an important part. But also one thing that the advisory board does that maybe some other things don't is that it builds credibility within the company. It's very different having an advisory board filled with, let's say, 8th graders versus advisory board that's filled with people that have worked at Blue Origin, the rocket company, or people that have worked in the highest levels of government across the country. And so that is something that we take advantage of, and I think you guys should do that too. I think it's a good opportunity, but also a lot of these advisors that you interact with, they want to give back. A lot of them, I know that big political positions, etc. Yes, but at the same time, they want to find a way to give back, and that is exactly what Tony's doing. And so I always do appreciate him.
Appreciate it, for sure. Okay, I think I can squeeze in one more question. What was the most unexpected / surprising part of starting or running your company?
Unexpected. I would say actually the regulations. I'm going to be honest. When I started the company, I was like, let's launch some rockets.
Let's launch some rockets.
And then you get into it, and then you realize that there's a lot of barriers, especially with the current stage of the regulatory realm in this space. And I think that's a very big hurdle. And it's actually not something that I considered fully before starting. I got the technical side down, but definitely not the policy side for the time being.
Well, Jeanue, thank you. I think we are at the end of our time together. Please, let's thank our wonderful guest one more time, Jeanue Chung. I think the dean is not here to wish everybody well, but let me wish you well. And what's up next? Are we having a little commingling thing? Oh, you're next. Okay, good.
Okay, good evening. My name is Hong Luo. I'm the academic director for Center for Entrepreneurship. I'm also a professor at Rutman and the Econ department. So first off, what a fascinating conversation, and thank you, Tony, and thank you, Jeanue, for taking us along the ride. It's quite amazing to see how sort of the high-level national policy and student-led innovation can come together in such a beautiful way, and to capture truly the spirit of building for the future. I have taught in the business school for over like 15 years, and having seen many cases, I'm constantly amazed to see how a spark of curiosity, when supported in the right environment, could actually grow into solutions to complex problems and create immense value. And you are a wonderful example of that, and you're just getting started. So it's truly remarkable to actually imagine and think about how you take on innovation and all the pressure and challenges at LUNR, and at the same time, navigating through your undergraduate study. So he did promise me that he will actually graduate in the summer, so that must be a big relief to his parents. Fantastic. And thank you, Tony, for enabling this fantastic conversation and sharing your own insights and wisdom. And most of all, thank you for being a wonderful mentor to Jeanue. So another round of applause for our two speakers. So as we are concluding the night, I cannot help but to claim a little bit of credit, since after all, much of the last 2 years apparently were spent at the Center for Entrepreneurship. So perhaps that's the true lesson of tonight. Joking aside, I hope tonight will encourage all of you to check out the educational programs at the center. Go up to the 6th floor and check out the interesting co-working space and maker spaces. And also connect with us if you want to figure out how wonderful the mentoring services as well as professional services the center provides. I would like to thank our Dean Wright for opening for tonight, and the entire team of U of T Entrepreneurship for making this week fantastic. And also thank you for every individual, especially my team at the center, for making tonight a success and a wonderful event. And thank you everyone here for coming. And I hope everyone after tonight will feel much ready to go on to the next step in your own journey, founder or not. I'm sure it will be entrepreneurial. Okay, thank you all again, and enjoy the rest of the evening and some light refreshment and networking. Thank you.